Good morning. My name is Cameron Broadfield. Can you tell me your full name, please?
My name is Ming Wu.
What should I call you?
You can call me Ming.
Could you tell me where you're from?
Yes, I'm from Shanghai, China.
Can I see your identification, please?
Oh, just a minute. Here you go.
Thank you. Now, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about your studies. Where do you study?
I study sociology at Fudan University, here in Shanghai, and I'm in my first year.
How long does it take you to travel there each day?
I guess it probably takes me an hour each way. I catch the bus, so it depends on traffic to some extent.
What are the advantages of studying at this location?
The best thing about studying at this university is its reputation. Fudan University is quite prestigious, and I am very lucky to be accepted to their undergraduate program.
Now let's talk about news. In what ways do you normally find out about news and current events?
I watch breakfast television in the morning, so I hear a roundup of all the news then. It's a good way to start the day, as I like being informed about what's happening, and I can watch it while I'm getting ready to go to university.
Which do you prefer, international or national news?
I'm probably more interested in national and regional news than international, because the coverage is better. On the weekends, I like to catch up with international news, as I have a bit more time.
How often do you listen to or read the news?
Every morning, it's kind of part of my morning routine, actually, and occasionally, I'll watch the late news at night as well.
Which types of news do you find most interesting?
I'm fascinated by news about people, whether it's health-related, business, or economics. I just like to hear about what people are doing around my country and any new developments. It's because I'm curious about human nature, I suppose.
Now let's talk about art. What type of art do you enjoy most?
I'm not really that big on art in general, but if I had to say, I suppose I quite like statues and sculpture, things like that. Things which are in public spaces for everybody to enjoy, rather than hidden away in expensive galleries.
Have you ever learned anything artistic?
Yes, I studied art and calligraphy at school. I really enjoyed it at the time, but it wasn't going to lead to any type of career, so I dropped it.
Would you prefer to create art or view art?
I'd probably prefer to view it. Although, as I said, I enjoyed taking art at school, I don't think I'd have much talent for it now. So I'm probably better off just enjoying other people's artwork.
Do you think it's important for art to be taught in schools?
I do think it's important, but not as important as other subjects such as maths and science. Taking art at school beyond a certain age is a bit of a waste of time, because, as I mentioned, it doesn't lead to any sort of decent career.
Now I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish. Do you understand?
Yes.
Here's some paper and a pencil for making notes, and here's your topic. I'd like you to talk about a person you have lived with.
I'm going to talk about someone that I lived with while I was studying abroad 3 years ago. I went to study English in Canada, and I had a homestay who I stayed with in a town called Hamilton, which is in Ontario. My homestay mother was quite old, about 65 years old, I think, and we lived together for the time that I was studying in Canada, which in total was 1 year. So it was quite a long time to live with someone that I'd never met before I left. Anyway, she was a very kind woman and she was very patient with me, as when I arrived my English was terrible. She was also very funny, and I came to understand her sense of humor more, and more as my English ability improved. At first I thought she was just laughing at my poor English. She had lots of cats, about 7 or 8. But there must have been some sort of misunderstanding with the agency that placed me with her, because I had said on my original application form that I didn't like cats. Well, after I arrived, I couldn't really say anything, and I learned to like them anyway. We got along very well, and I enjoyed living with her. She was very clean and tidy, and I had to keep my room spotless as well. She also made sure that I was involved in household chores and cooking. So I used to make her lots of delicious Chinese food, which she loved, and she taught me some of her classic recipes. It's the first time I've ever lived with anybody who wasn't family, and while at first it was a little strange, by the time I had to leave, I was very attached to my host mother, and quite sad to leave. She dropped me at the airport when it was time for me to go home, and that was quite emotional. I hope that one day she will come to visit me, and I can show her around my country.
Thank you. Do you still keep in touch with this person?
Yes, I do. We exchange emails and sometimes letters.
Do you like living with other people?
Yes, most of the time.
We've been talking about a person you have lived with, and now I'd like to discuss with you 1 or 2 more general questions related to this. Let's consider first the topic of family. In many societies, traditional family structure is changing. Some people argue that this represents the breakdown of moral values. Do you agree or disagree?
Although I think that it might be part of a wider issue, I disagree that the changes in family structure are wholly responsible for a breakdown in moral values. Different family structures exist in different countries around the world. So I don't believe it is about any one ideal family makeup that contributes to moral values. Studies have shown that children from divorced parents are actually more morally resilient in some ways than children from intact families.
What are some of the reasons for the changing structure of families?
It's hard to say, but perhaps it's due to the fact that as the world becomes a smaller place, we are hearing more about other opinions, such as divorce and separation, and this tends to make these trends more acceptable, and thus more common. I think as well that the financial recession has forced some young people to return home to live with their parents. So this also represents a changing family structure.
How do you think family structure might change further in the future?
In my country, I don't foresee any dramatic changes in family structure because family is at the heart of Chinese society and always will be. Also, legislation such as the one-child policy will continue to ensure that family structure and size is somewhat limited. Perhaps the only change might be that more young people might leave home before marrying, either to travel or to live in a flatting-type situation. This trend is becoming more popular nowadays, and so it might continue into the future.
Now let's talk about living with others. What are some of the problems which can arise between people who live together? What are some potential solutions to these problems?
Well, communication problems are the main issue which springs to mind. I think when people who live together forget to communicate about basic things which affect each other, such as cleanliness or sharing the bathroom, then this can lead to problems. So the obvious solution there is to communicate effectively and be considerate of communal spaces. For instance, you can't leave your clothes around the house or your dirty dishes in the sink. The other problem that can occur is a personality clash. If people who live together just don't get along at all, such as one person being neat and tidy, and the other more relaxed and laid back, I'm not sure what the solution is there, apart from not living together in the first place.
Some people believe that living with others shapes our personality traits and characteristics. What's your view?
I certainly think that's true when you live with someone for an extended time period, such as in the case of families. And they say that couples come to resemble one another if they live together for long enough. For instance, finishing each other's sentences and knowing what the other is thinking. However, I also think that changing core personality is a very slow process which doesn't happen easily at all, except in the example of children being raised in a household with their parents. Obviously, children's personalities are significantly influenced by those they live with because it's part of their psychological growth and development.
What types of personal characteristics are necessary in order to successfully live with others? For what reasons?
I think that to live with others, you need to be patient, a good communicator, have a good sense of humor, and be accepting and tolerant of others. Patience is probably the most essential quality because it means that you won't become frustrated by other people's annoying habits. And having a good sense of humor helps with that as well. Oh, and compromise. The ability to compromise is absolutely essential, because you can't always get things your own way.
Thank you. That is the end of the speaking test.